My best friend posted herself partying in Spain, while her daughter was dying in the hospital, so I beach slapped her with reality. My best friend Reagan had always dreamed of being a mother. Ever since we were teenagers, she'd constantly talk about what kind of mom she'd be and how many kids she'd have. So when Ava was born, Reagan was over the moon, and I was just as happy. I'd never seen her glow so bright. Our daughters, Ava and my Celine, grew up together like sisters, spending weekends and holidays at each other's houses. Fast forward 15 years. Reagan asked if I could watch Ava for a week while she took a solo vacation to Bali. It wasn't unusual. Reagan liked her breaks, and Ava practically lived at my house anyway. The first 2 days were fine, typical teen stuff, Netflix marathons, junk food, all of that. But on day 3, things took a turn. At dinner, I called Ava down from her room, but she didn't answer. Celine said she hadn't seen Ava since breakfast, which was odd. I walked upstairs, knocked on her door, but got nothing. The door was unlocked, but Ava wasn't there. Her window was open, her phone was on the bed, and her wallet was gone. My heart started racing. I checked everywhere. The bathroom, the backyard, called her friends. Nothing. Celine mentioned Ava had been texting someone new lately, someone she met online. That's when I found her laptop, still logged into a chat app. The messages made my blood run cold. Some guy had been grooming Ava for weeks, and the last message confirmed they were meeting at the bus station. It was already 3 hours too late. I immediately called 911, then Reagan. She answered from what sounded like a beach party. Through panicked breaths, I explained Ava was missing, possibly abducted. There was a long pause before Reagan said, "Check the mall." I explained about the predator, the police involvement, the Amber Alert. She actually laughed, insisting Ava was being dramatic for attention. The police issued an Amber Alert. I sent Reagan everything. Screenshots, photos, the case number. Her response arrived an hour later. This is why I needed vacation. 36 hours later, a jogger found Ava abandoned in a park 3 towns over. She was alive, but different. In a bush, not speaking, not calling for help, just laying there with eyes wide open, like being dead was better than living. At the hospital, the doctors confirmed the worst. Her thighs had been beyond bruised, her nether region had been violated, and her back door extremely hemorrhaged. I called Reagan immediately, sobbing. I told her they found Ava, that she was hospitalized, that something terrible had happened. Reagan asked if she was alive. When I confirmed yes but explained the severity, there was silence. Then she mentioned flight change fees and how doctors could handle it. Her return flight was in 4 days and she saw no reason to change it. I hung up on her, too disgusted to continue. For the next 4 days, I lived at that hospital. Ava would only speak to whisper my name. She had night terrors. She flinched when male doctors entered. The police collected evidence. Detectives interviewed her when she could manage a few words. And through it all, her mother posted beach selfies with captions about living her best life and good vibes only. When I sent Reagan a photo of Ava's bandaged wrists after a self-harm attempt, Reagan suggested maybe a facility would be better. Reagan finally showed up at my house, a full day after landing, deeply tanned and relaxed. She'd come to collect Ava from the hospital earlier that day, but Ava had begged to stay with me instead. She gave Ava an awkward half hug, then immediately asked about the luggage she'd left before vacation. As I explained Ava's recovery plan, the therapy she'd need, the ongoing investigation, Reagan's face darkened with each word. The detective had called about needing Reagan's statement. The therapist wanted family sessions. There would be court dates. Suddenly, Reagan snapped. She stood up, accusing me of parenting her child behind her back. Her voice got louder, shouting about overstepping boundaries and blowing things out of proportion. "She met a stranger," Reagan spat. "Play stupid games." That's when I heard a choked sob from the hallway. Ava stood frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks. Reagan barely glanced at her daughter. My heart pounded. I shouted back, telling her she chose the beach over her traumatized daughter. But Reagan just scoffed, rolling her eyes, insisting teens are dramatic and I should have known better. That was it. I snapped and unloaded everything. I told her she was selfish, negligent, that her daughter's safety meant less to her than a full moon party, that she blamed a traumatized child for being groomed and attacked. Reagan's voice lowered, venomous and cold. "You don't understand needing a break." At that exact moment, something between us shattered completely. I saw who Reagan really was, and I knew instantly our friendship was beyond repair. Reagan grabbed Ava's bag and demanded she leave, but Ava locked herself in my bathroom, sobbing uncontrollably, refusing to go. And that's when Reagan lost it. She began yelling, accusing me of kidnapping her daughter, of turning Ava against her. Before I knew it, her phone was out, and she was calling the police. I watched through the window as the sirens grew louder, my hands trembling against the curtain. Ava's hyperventilating echoed from the bathroom while Reagan paced outside, her phone held high, recording everything. She kept shouting about her rights as a mother, her voice carrying that same theatrical quality she'd perfected over the years. 2 police cruisers pulled up, and I noticed Mrs. Chen from next door peering through her blinds. My family was still at the dinner table, forks frozen midair as Reagan's performance intensified in our entryway. Celine had her phone out, live streaming to her friends for support, her face pale with worry. The officers approached our door, and I tried to gather my thoughts. The hospital discharge papers were in my car, Ava's therapy appointment cards in my purse. But when I opened my mouth to explain, everything came out wrong. My words tumbled over each other, and what I meant as concern sounded like bitter jealousy to the officers. They exchanged glances and one radioed for backup, mentioning a domestic dispute. The younger officer studied Reagan, and I caught him noticing how her fresh Bali tan contrasted sharply with her claimed distress. She dabbed at dry eyes, clutching her chest dramatically. Celine appeared at my elbow, homework in hand, her AP chemistry textbook weighing down her arms. She looked torn between helping her best friend barricaded in the bathroom and maintaining her own stability during junior year. College applications were due soon, and this chaos was the last thing she needed. I faced an impossible choice. The hospital records in my bag could prove everything, but showing them would violate Ava's medical privacy. messy. Reagan continued her performance, painting me as unstable, possessive, trying to steal her daughter. My phone buzzed with a text from Ava. Please don't let her take me. I chose to protect her privacy, letting Reagan control the narrative while my heart broke for the terrified girl hiding in my bathroom. The doorbell rang. Pizza delivery for Celine's study group, who were now arriving one by one, backpacks in hand. My spouse's car pulled into the driveway, and I watched their confused expression as they took in the police cars. They walked in to find officers in our living room, Reagan center stage. My spouse, always the peacemaker, offered everyone coffee, but their attempt to mediate backfired spectacularly. Reagan smoothly took charge of serving, moving through my kitchen like she owned it, marking her territory with every gesture. She used this as evidence that our household was chaotic and inappropriate for a traumatized teen. Reagan's breakdown intensified. She described finding out her baby was hurt while she'd trusted the wrong person. The younger officer, who'd mentioned having daughters, softened visibly. His partner took notes while Reagan painted herself as a grieving mother betrayed by her best friend. Celine, trying to help, told the officers how Ava was basically her sister. Reagan pounced on this, twisting it into evidence that I was trying to replace the real mother. She pulled up photos on her phone of Ava as a baby, as a toddler, at her first day of school. I remembered the hospital bracelet in my car from Ava's discharge. It had all the dates, the case numbers, proof of Reagan's absence. But retrieving it meant leaving Ava alone with Reagan and the police. When I moved toward the door, Reagan smoothly stepped into my path, still talking to the officers about her maternal rights. My phone lit up with texts from neighbors. Everything okay? Saw the police cars? Is Ava all right? The whole neighborhood was watching, documenting, judging. Tomorrow this would be all over the local Facebook groups. The next morning brought new complications. The school counselor called, needing Ava's therapy documentation to approve her extended absence. As her legal guardian, only Reagan could provide it, giving her power over Ava's entire recovery timeline. She could drag this out, control when Ava returned to school, when she could start healing properly. My sister Catherine called while I was making breakfast. She reminded me of when I'd helped our mutual friend through her divorce 5 years ago. You went overboard then too, she said, her words stinging because they held a grain of truth. You always get too involved. Reagan had started a Facebook group overnight, praying for Ava. Every update could be screenshot and twisted. She posted about her daughter's strength, about trusting God's plan, about forgiveness. My absence from the group was already being discussed in the comments as showing my lack of concern. I tried to document Reagan's lies. Her luggage still had tags from the Bali resort, proving she'd stayed the full week despite claiming she'd tried to return early. But when I attempted to photograph them, Reagan caught me and immediately posted about stalking behavior in our mutual friends group chat. Her power plays escalated. She controlled Ava's phone plan, her insurance cards, her medical power of attorney. A text arrived, I can shut off her phone anytime, remember that. Ava's therapy appointments were still auto-billing to Reagan's credit card, another leverage point. 3 days without proper sleep caught up with me. I accidentally sent a work email meant for my boss to Reagan's lawyer instead. It contained unflattering comments about the situation, my frustration bleeding through professional boundaries. The lawyer would definitely use it. My best friend Maria met me for coffee, but her support came with conditions. I can't testify about Reagan's neglect, she admitted, stirring her latte nervously. My ex will use any drama to revisit our custody agreement. I'm sorry, but I can't risk it. At the coffee shop, 3 moms from Ava's old soccer team sat at the next table, loudly discussing that custody mess, their voices carried deliberately. I gathered my things to leave, catching the barista mouthing, I'm sorry, while taking their orders. Reagan's web of lies grew more sophisticated. She claimed she'd been checking flights constantly from Bali, desperate to return. The airline system showed multiple searches from her account, which technically supported her claim, though she'd never actually purchased a different ticket. Another friend admitted she needed Reagan's recommendation letter for nursing school. Reagan worked at the hospital where she wanted placement. I'm sorry, she said, but I can't afford to take sides. Every attempt to prove Reagan's neglect made me look obsessive. The background check I'd paid for to verify her resort stay painted me as a stalker in her narrative. Truth-seeking behavior had become indistinguishable from harassment. My lawyer finally called with good news. A temporary custody hearing was scheduled. I smiled briefly, just a moment of relief, but Reagan's friend caught it on camera, posting it immediately. Look at her celebrating tearing a family apart. We stood on opposite sides of an invisible battlefield, both realizing the stakes. Whoever lost this fight would lose everything. Ava, reputation, community standing, future. There was no middle ground anymore, no compromise possible. Only one of us would emerge with Ava, and the other would be left with nothing but ashes of a 15-year friendship. The battle lines were drawn. The war for Ava's future had officially begun. Reagan volunteered at my workplace charity event the following week, arriving early to help set up tables. She bonded with my boss over single mother struggles while I watched from across the room. Reagan quoted Ava's favorite book to my boss's daughter, demonstrating a maternal knowledge that made my stomach turn. My boss nodded sympathetically as Reagan described the challenges of raising a traumatized teen alone. The conversation we'd had about Ava staying with me played differently in our memories. Reagan remembered discussing a temporary emergency arrangement. I remembered promising to care for Ava until she was stable. Both versions felt completely true to each of us, creating an unbridgeable gap in our realities. My own text from 2 years ago surfaced through Reagan's lawyer. During a different context, I'd written that Reagan needed to grow up and be a real mother. The words, stripped of their original meaning, became weapons in court documents. My elderly mother started taking Reagan's side after Reagan brought groceries and chatted about missing her baby. My mother patted Reagan's hand, telling me later that she seemed so sad. Blood matters, my mother insisted, undermining my position with every conversation. Ring doorbell footage from my house became a double-edged sword. It showed Ava arriving disheveled from the the hospital, supporting my concerns, but it also captured my angry rants about Reagan to my spouse, words I'd never intended for public consumption. Family court treated our emergency filing as premature despite my new lawyer's arguments. The judge ordered mediation first, delaying any real protection for Ava. The system moved slowly while Reagan tightened her control. I used Ava's saved passwords from when she'd logged into my laptop during her hospital stay. The autocomplete showed her last searches, questions about divorcing parents and minor emancipation. I prevented Reagan from accessing therapy notes, a small victory in an escalating war. Reagan's pattern of weekend trips emerged through Instagram history. Her lawyer presented them as self-care preventing burnout rather than neglect. Every absence reframed as responsible parenting. My therapist received a subpoena about our sessions. Years of discussing frustration with Reagan's parenting and concerns about my savior complex became part of the legal record. Private thoughts weaponized in public proceedings. I attempted to record Reagan admitting she knew Ava was troubled. Reagan spotted my phone screen's reflection in the window and smoothly switched to discussing her grief and worry. Another failed attempt at gathering evidence. School pickup required a listed guardian. Reagan removed my authorization while Ava waited in the counselor's office. The traumatized teen had no choice but to leave with her mother. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. The hospital social worker who'd supported my temporary guardianship backed off after administration received complaints about overstepping professional boundaries. She apologized quietly, mentioning student loans and job security. Reagan redecorated Ava's room, posting healing space photos on social media. Ava discovered all her personal items boxed in the garage, forced to sleep in a room stripped of her identity. The violation ran deeper than physical space. Reagan offered to let Ava visit on weekends if I signed an affidavit stating no neglect occurred. The document would support Reagan's fitness as a mother, erasing everything I'd witnessed. My refusal got framed on Facebook as preferring to hurt a grieving mother than help a traumatized child heal. I discovered an error in my timeline. Reagan had landed Tuesday, not Wednesday, invalidating a key argument my lawyer had already filed with the court. The entire neglect narrative needed rebuilding from scratch. Both Reagan and I realized Ava had been writing in a private blog about feeling abandoned by her mother. The entries documented a pattern of emotional neglect predating the assault, raw evidence neither of us had expected. My proof of Reagan's neglect, the Bali photos, suddenly looked different. Reagan's therapist had previously advised against helicopter parenting. Reagan's trip could be seen as following professional advice rather than abandonment. My sister faced an impossible choice. Supporting my custody fight meant risking her daughter Emma's college gymnastics scholarship. Reagan wrote crucial recommendation letters for the program. My sister chose neutrality, leaving me without family witnesses while Reagan brought her entire support network to court. I began documenting everything with timestamps and witnesses. Learning that law required evidence, not emotion, I created paper trails Reagan couldn't dispute. Every interaction became potential proof. I orchestrated a chance encounter at Ava's pediatrician office by scheduling Celine's appointment at the same time. While discussing flu shots, I memorized Ava's growth chart on the wall, gathering information Reagan couldn't block. Medical records accessed through the patient portal before Reagan realized I still had the password-revealed patterns. Missed appointments, delayed vaccinations, gaps in care that painted a picture of neglect. Evidence downloaded and secured. Ava's biological father, Marcus, emerged from another state after Reagan contacted him seeking support. The man who'd been uninvolved since Ava was 2 suddenly had legal standing. Fighting a two-front battle, I missed a crucial guardian ad litem interview while dealing with Marcus's lawyer. The report marked me as uncooperative. Legal bills forced me to max out credit cards while Reagan used Ava's college fund for temporary expenses related to recovery. Financial warfare adding to emotional devastation. Reagan filed a police report about stalking after 3 coincidental meetings. I had to prove each location was a routine destination, my daily life becoming evidence in a harassment claim. I lost my part-time coaching position after parents complained about custody drama affecting team dynamics. Reagan's friend smoothly took over the position. Another piece of my life claimed in the battle. Our basement office became a bedroom after Celine gave up her room for Ava. We adapted our living space while Reagan posted about healing space renovations, competing narratives of care. My mother begged me to stop, insisting I was destroying myself and that poor girl needed peace. Even she thought I should give up, her words cutting deeper than any legal filing. My investigation into Reagan's Bali timeline caused her coworker friend to be questioned by HR about covering shifts. The friend's daughter asked why mommy was crying about work, innocent casualties in our war. The coworker's husband grew suspicious about his wife's involvement in someone else's custody drama. Marital tensions spread like ripples from our central conflict. I continued pushing, despite knowing the investigation hurt innocent colleagues who'd simply traded shifts. Celine asked if Ava actually needed to be with her real mother to heal. My exhausted daughter's doubt left me unable to immediately answer, the question hanging between us like an accusation. I publicly admitted in court to calling Reagan a selfish beach during past arguments. Maintaining credibility about current concerns meant exposing my own worst moments. Ava's blog revealed I'd focused on criticizing Reagan instead of listening when Ava tried to share fears. An entry read that I just ranted about her mom again when she needed help. My advocacy had overshadowed actual support. Reagan's lawyer filed an emergency motion for immediate temporary orders citing urgent need for stability. My lawyer was at mandatory training, leaving me scrambling for representation. Reagan genuinely believed she deserved to be Ava's real mother after years of my undermining her parenting. Her motivation mixed real love for Ava with narcissistic need to be seen as a good mother despite failures. I revealed Ava's self-harm attempts documented in hospital records. Betraying the teen's trust to establish patterns of Reagan's neglect violated my core belief in protecting children's dignity. My compassionate self died side as a strategic self emerged. I manipulated witnesses, traded favors, leveraged pain, becoming someone I didn't recognize to win a battle for someone I loved. Evidence of Reagan's Bali activities surfaced when her travel companion posted public Instagram photos. I screenshot them before deletion, digital proof of Reagan's priorities during crisis. A small victory when the judge ordered therapy felt hollow. Reagan sobbed genuinely at the mention of Ava's trauma. Both of us crying in the courthouse bathroom, mothers united only in pain. Reagan's counterclaim that I groomed Ava to reject her mother gained traction with the Guardian ad litem. My close relationship with Ava became suspicious rather than supportive in legal interpretation. Everything depended on Ava's own testimony to the judge in chambers. The traumatized teen held the power to determine her own future, pressure no child should bear. I'd used Reagan's nephew in the past for babysitting. The child now asked why I wouldn't let Ava see her mommy, coached but not understanding the manipulation. Children became pawns in adult battles. Hospital colleagues chose sides based on who controlled better shifts. Reagan's position as charge nurse with scheduling power influenced allegiances. Professional relationships crumbled under personal pressure. The judge explained burden of proof for changing custody required clear and convincing evidence. My fears weren't enough without documentation. Legal standards creating barriers to protection. I called in a favor from Ava's former teacher who documented behavioral changes after Reagan's trips. She risked her job providing information. Another person drawn into our destructive orbit. The teacher provided a written statement but wouldn't testify in person. Reagan's friend served as opposing counsel in the teacher's divorce. Connections creating silence. The blog entries became our smoking gun. Ava had documented everything meticulously. Dates and times when Reagan left her alone overnight, forgotten school events, missed medical appointments. The metadata proved these entries predated the assault by months. Reagan's overconfidence led her to swear in an affidavit about being in constant contact during Bali. Phone records showed 3 calls in 7 days. The courtroom morning arrived with both sides exhausted. Reagan's manicure was chipped. My clothes hung loose from stress-induced weight loss. Community members packed the gallery, forced to choose sides by where they sat. Ava's teacher positioned herself alone in the back row, avoiding both factions. Reagan's brother Benjamin cracked under pressure when his own lawyer warned about perjury charges. He admitted Reagan had asked him to lie about their Bali contact frequency. His testimony unraveled Reagan's carefully constructed narrative about checking on Ava constantly. The Guardian ad litem read Ava's written statement aloud. The room fell silent as years of emotional absence poured out through carefully chosen words. Ava described waiting by windows for a mother who prioritized everything else, learning to stop expecting comfort, becoming her own parent at 12. The court-appointed IT expert authenticated the blog entries' metadata, despite Reagan's desperate claim that I'd manipulated them. Timestamps proved the entries existed before the assault, before I knew about them, before this battle began. Reagan's face crumbled as her own lies trapped her. The judge ordered comprehensive evaluations for everyone involved. Psychological assessments, custody evaluations, trauma specialist for Ava. The evidence painted a clear pattern of neglect, though not criminal abandonment. Reagan genuinely believed she'd been a good mother, unable to comprehend emotional absence as harmful. When offered the chance to recommend custody arrangements, I made a choice that surprised everyone. Instead of demanding full custody, I proposed a therapeutic reunification plan. Reagan needed parenting classes and individual therapy. Ava needed her mother to get better, not disappear entirely. The judge approved temporary custody to me with a graduated reunification schedule. Supervised visits would begin after Reagan completed initial therapy requirements. Communication would happen only through a court-monitored app. The restraining order was modified to allow therapeutic contact. Our community split permanently. Some supported Reagan as an imperfect but loving mother who deserved another chance. Others saw the documented pattern of neglect and sided with protecting Ava. The book club disbanded. Friendships that had lasted decades ended in bitter Facebook unfriending sprees. Reagan's workplace became uncomfortable as colleagues chose sides based on shift preferences and scheduling power. She maintained her nursing position but lost the informal influence she'd wielded. Several nurses transferred to different units to avoid the tension. My marriage strained under the pressure but held. We attended counseling to process the trauma of watching a child we loved suffer while fighting her own mother for protection. My spouse supported my choices even when they disagreed with my methods. Celine struggled with complicated feelings about sharing her room, her parents, her life with her traumatized best friend. She loved Ava but resented the chaos. We found a therapist who specialized in sibling dynamics to help them rebuild their relationship on healthier terms. The financial damage took years to resolve. Legal bills consumed our savings and maxed out credit cards. Reagan had drained Ava's college fund for recovery expenses that actually went to her own legal fees. We started rebuilding from nothing. Marcus, Ava's biological father, disappeared again after realizing actual custody meant actual responsibility. His brief involvement served only to complicate proceedings and traumatize Ava further. The court terminated his minimal rights when he failed to appear for 3 consecutive hearings. Extended family relationships fractured along unexpected lines. My mother never fully forgave me for breaking up a family, while my sister Catherine eventually apologized for not supporting me. Some cousins sided with Reagan based on Facebook posts without knowing the full story. Reagan completed her required parenting classes with minimal engagement. She attended therapy but spent sessions insisting she'd done nothing wrong. Progress came slowly, measured in tiny acknowledgments of Ava's emotional needs rather than breakthrough moments. Ava's healing journey proved complex and non-linear. Some days she wanted her mother desperately. Other days she couldn't bear the thought of seeing her. We honored all these feelings without judgment, letting her control the pace of reunification. The supervised visits started 3 months later in a therapist's office. Awkward conversations about homework and weather filled the hours while a professional professional observed. Reagan brought gifts Ava didn't want and asked questions Ava couldn't answer. I attended my own therapy to process the transformation from Reagan's best friend to her adversary. The therapist helped me understand that protecting Ava didn't require destroying Reagan, though the battle had nearly accomplished both. 6 months later, our new normal felt fragile but functional. Ava lived with us but saw Reagan twice weekly in therapy. Reagan was learning to actually see her daughter's needs. I was learning to step back and let their relationship exist without my intervention. The community remained divided, but the acute conflict faded to chronic discomfort. We shopped at different grocery stores, attended different gym classes, avoided each other at school events. The price of protecting Ava included permanent social fractures. Ava slowly stabilized with intensive therapy, medication management, and 2 imperfect but committed mother figures. She returned to school part-time, rebuilt friendships, even laughed occasionally. Her recovery wasn't a straight line, but a wandering path with setbacks and victories. Reagan began to grasp what she'd missed during all those weekend trips and self-care retreats. The realization came in small moments, seeing Ava flinch at certain phrases, recognizing the depth of damage her absence had caused. Change happened incrementally, not dramatically. My role shifted from protector to guardian to something harder to define. Not Ava's mother, but more than an aunt. Not Reagan's enemy, but never again her friend. We existed in careful balance, connected forever by our love for a damaged child who needed us both. The legal system had provided a framework for protection, but no magic solutions. We'd achieved justice through exhausting processes that left everyone scarred. The truth was acknowledged by the court, if not accepted by all our former friends. Looking back, I'd make the same choice to protect Ava while wishing the cost had been lower. Some bridges burned beyond repair, others strengthened through the crisis. We'd survived by adapting, not by winning. Reagan, Ava, and I were forever changed, bound together in complicated ways that defied simple categories. Our story had no clean ending, just a messy, painful, ongoing reality of trying to heal what had been broken while preventing further damage.